Welcome to the Haunted Half Moon Inn. The residents here have been dying to meet you. The Haunted Half Moon Inn has many stories to tell. Many people have experienced very terrifying paranormal phenomena here. Tonight, I'm going to share two true ghost stories with you. Both stories are 100% true. Now, you may be wondering how I know that they are true stories. I know because the first story happened to me, and the second story happened to my parents. This is my story. Around 20 years ago, teenage curiosity lured me into an unforgettable encounter with the realm of the diabolic. One day, before a varsity football game in high school, I picked up my best friend Matt, who lived in the town of Junction Ridge at the time. I planned to take us over to a house that I knew for a fact was haunted. I knew this for certain because my dad had lived there for 3 years when he was around 12 years old. Matt and I knew all of my dad's scary but true stories, and we figured we'd kill some time before we had to suit up for the football game. The haunted farmhouse, that's what we always call it, was just a few minutes away from his house. It is located on Junction Hill Road. We weren't expecting much to happen. It's daytime, and we won't be going inside the house because people live there. We'll only be there in broad daylight on the side of the road, safely outside of the house for but a few minutes. What could possibly happen? Now, when I say people were living there, keep in mind that they chose to live only in one section of the large, white, colonial farmhouse. A small addition was added to the original structure after my dad and his family had moved out. That small addition is precisely where each of the next 3 families decided to quarantine themselves. We know that each family primarily lived in the tiny, newer part because every single time my dad or I would drive by the house at nighttime, over a period of 30 years, the lights would only be on in the new addition portion, while the main part of the old house was completely dark. No lights from a TV flickering, no light for reading, nothing. Only darkness. A few of the people that lived there after my dad's family left attempted renovations on the old part of the house. Without fail, each and every attempt ceased just as quickly as it had begun. The end result is that the house looks every bit its old age, growing more and more dilapidated. A little more backstory on the house. My dad had found out some facts from the town historian, Mr. Sly, who used to teach history at the local school. Mr. Sly had told my father that the old farmhouse was built in the late 1700s, and at one time it was also known as the Half Moon Inn. The Half Moon Inn served as a stopover for people traveling from New York City to the upstate. Now, back to the encounter Matt and I had with the preternatural. We arrive at the ominous old farmhouse on Junction Ridge Road. We are in my parents' 1990 white Jeep Cherokee Pioneer. I park the car and turn off the engine. We are sitting in the Jeep for a few minutes just watching the house. Suddenly, a cold chill runs through my bones as the atmosphere changes. I look nervously at Matt and ask, "Hey, do you feel that?" "The very thick, heavy, and oppressive air?" "Yeah, man, I feel it," replied Matt. It's as if he's read my mind. The air is similar to the thickness of a day with 100% humidity, except instead of moisture filling the atmosphere, every negative human feeling has taken the water's place. It's difficult to properly convey the experience. It seems unnatural. I'd have to say that the atmosphere is best described simply as unadulterated evil. Perhaps this is but a foretaste of what damned souls experience for eternity in hell. Somehow, I just know that we are in the presence of something inhuman, something evil, something that desires to scare and harm us. While I'm not seeing any otherworldly form, every fiber of my being is absolutely certain that we are not alone. Suddenly, without warning, my engine attempts to turn over. It's the sound that an engine makes when a car won't start on a bitterly cold day. The engine is rapidly turning on and off while producing a clicking sound, but the car does not start. Matt and I quickly shoot bewildered and frightened looks at each other. The hair on the back of my neck stands up as if it would like to run away from this place. My hands are nowhere near the keys in the ignition, and the hands of Matt, who is sitting right beside me in the passenger seat, are nowhere near the ignition either. I realize that the engine had just tried and failed to turn itself on. It sputtered as it tried to start, and it did so without the aid of any human hand turning the keys in the ignition. The year is 1997, and this car doesn't have keyless ignition or a remote starter. We look at each other and quickly shout, "What the hell was that? Let's get out of here!" My heart is racing, and I quickly reach for the keys which have been firmly sitting in the ignition the whole time. A rush of adrenaline pulses through me as I turn the key and hear the car start up. I put the car in drive, heavily press the gas pedal, and get the hell out of there. As I'm driving, I think to myself that not even the Flash could have gotten out of there faster. I take a deep breath and take comfort in knowing that we're now driving straight to the high school to get ready for our football game tonight. After I had time to settle my nerves and collect my thoughts, it dawned on me that my parents had a similar frightening encounter at the old haunted farmhouse. My dad would periodically check in on his old farmhouse over the years. After all, the farmhouse was only down the road from where he lived at the time, so going there didn't require any planning. In fact, even after my parents got married and built a home of their own, the farmhouse was still only several miles away. My dad and I had walked from our house to the old farmhouse and back again on several occasions. I really cherished those walks with my dad. One could say that the farmhouse was never far away, not physically nor mentally. I suppose that my dad periodically checked in on the old farmhouse because doing so was the sort of way that one keeps tabs on an old foe, or perhaps it was a fascination with the unknown and a way to reaffirm that the extraordinary events that he suffered did indeed happen. If he could see the house, then he could see that it wasn't a dream, or to be more precise, that it wasn't a nightmare. It may be a way to confirm that what seems unreal is indeed real, very real. The house is real. My dad's memories are real. The events that happened there are real, traumatic, but real. So, perhaps these were the reasons that my dad would go past that old house from time to time over the years. Or perhaps the farmhouse called out to him as the sirens of Greek mythology beckoned sailors to their doom. Whatever the case may be, on one Friday evening when my dad drove my mom past the old haunted farmhouse, they both had a haunting experience. The following story took place before my mom and dad were married. They would frequently go out for a drive in the car, as young couples in love often do. This particular drive was different, very different. It was a warm summer evening in the beautiful Hudson Valley of New York, and my parents went for a spin in my dad's white Pontiac Bonneville. It was a convertible with a red interior. My dad decided to drive by his old farmhouse to check in on it. My mom was not pleased, to say the least. She didn't want to go for two reasons, both of which were very reasonable.
Jimmy, I don't want to go there. I don't want to disturb the family that lives there now. They might think that we're some kind of freaky stalkers. Besides, the place is haunted by evil spirits. What if they do something? What if they remember you and follow us back to our homes?
You're so sweet and innocent, but don't be a scaredy cat, said my dad with a gleam in his eyes and an impish smile and laugh.
Come on, let's go. This isn't a good idea. I don't want to be here.
Pleaded my mom. She was understandably unnerved as all of the terrifying stories that my dad and his family had told her about this house were now racing through her head. These were stories that included ghostly footsteps going up and down the stairs, chains rattling seemingly of their own accord in the basement, toilets flushing by themselves, objects winding up in bizarre places when nobody moved them, unexplained coldness in the summer, dogs circling and barking at an invisible presence, an icy, unseen finger poking my dad's shoulder, ghostly arms coming up from the bed, loud moaning and sinister laughing from an invisible presence. These were but some of the images that were frantically running through her mind. My dad's response was to continue to sit and observe the house in silence. Well, he was silent, but my mom continued to plead with him as she said,
That's enough. Let's go. Please come on, let's go. Just let it alone.
The more that my mom insisted that they leave, the more that my dad seemed determined to stay even longer. After what felt like an eternity to my dad finally decided to go. So my dad went to start the car. The only problem was that the Bonneville wouldn't start. He turned the key again, but once again, nothing. The engine didn't try to turn over. The only sound was silence. After several tries, my dad popped the hood and got out of the car to take a look. Returning to the car, he told my mom what the problem was. A wire was pulled out of the engine while we were sitting here, he said.
Couldn't the wire just have loosened and fallen out?
No, this wire didn't loosen and it didn't simply fall out. This could only have happened if someone physically pulled the wire up. This was no accident, said my dad, in a serious but restrained tone. He showed no signs of being afraid. My mom, however, was very scared. After learning about why the car wouldn't start, my mom went from having been very nervous to very scared in just a moment. My dad put the wire in its correct place, and he was finally able to start the car. They then left the haunted farmhouse, the old Half Moon Inn, and drove into the night. A night that would never be forgotten. My dad's stories of his time at the old farmhouse are far more terrifying than my encounter with the evil spirits. His true tales could fill an entire book. I can't imagine what it was like for him to live in that haunted farmhouse for several years as a boy. It must have been traumatic. It almost certainly left a lifelong mark on him and his brothers. After living there, they would never see the world the same way again. They would never doubt the existence of spiritual beings or whether or not there is life after death. They would never see such things in the way that those who haven't been harassed by evil spirits do. The paranormal experiences that they had in that house are far more frightening than any TV show or movie. Please keep in mind that these frightening paranormal experiences that I've shared with you here today happened when we were merely near the property outside of the old farmhouse. Imagine what has happened and can still happen inside of this haunted house. It was my dad's encounters with the preternatural, along with my own, that set me on a quest to find the truth about the unseen world. This is the inspiration for the Haunted Half Moon Inn YouTube channel. If you enjoyed these two true stories, then please like this video to help with the YouTube algorithm and so other people may find this video. I also invite you to subscribe to the Haunted Half Moon Inn YouTube channel so that you won't miss any of the new content that I have planned for you. These true stories were written and narrated by Tony Capobianco, with special guest
Maggot Capobianco.
Thank you for stopping by the Haunted Half Moon Inn, and remember, just because you can't see them doesn't mean that they're not there.